All right, let's go ahead and kick this off. This is part two in this series of videos that I'm putting together that really talks about a change that is happening. If you missed the intro video, make sure you go back and watch that. I'll give you an idea of kind of where this came from. But the thing is, like, I've been making these changes, and it's like I have not found a handbook about, like, oh, do this, 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 and this. So there's no real like steps. You have to do it in this order. So I'm structuring this though in kind of the order that I tackled these things, as the order that some of these things came up for me. So if you want to kind of follow along and you want to kind of use this, as I mentioned in the last video, as a call to action, awesome. And I'm going to give you some practical things that you can do yourself. So the first thing that I did was I began to visualize. This is something that I've always heard about, and I would hear about athletes, especially thinking about like Olympic skiers who would visualize their path down the hill during a race, or hearing about basketball players visualizing shooting baskets and the ball going in. And so I've always kind of known the power of visualization, and I'm sure I've used it in my own life before, but I've never done it in a very concrete way. Now, a lot of you might be familiar with vision boards. I mean, this time of year, the beginning of a brand new year, folks often do vision boards or create vision pages in journals, and that's something that I've never really done. And I kind of think about visualization as not just hoping and dreaming. They often say that like a goal has a date on it. It's a dream with a date. And that's kind of what I think visualization really is. It's really kind of thinking about, what are you dreaming of? What is this big change that you want to make? And this change can be anything. It can be, you wanted to get healthy, or you want to be more creative, or you want to make more art, or you want to create a new job, or be an entrepreneur, or whatever it is. And it could be a pretty simple or a pretty kind of grand thing, and that's going to kind of determine like how you go about this. So yeah, visualization, like I said, something that I've never done. But what I highly recommend, I mean, vision boards are awesome. A lot of people do it. But one of the things that I did was I wrote it down. And so if you're going to write it down, there's some statistics. There's a study that actually asked, I don't know how many people, I don't know. I've heard this cited several times, so I don't know the very specifics of it. But basically they asked all these people, and they found out like, oh, these people who have really attained these dreams that they've had, 42% of them wrote it down. I like this idea of visualization. So, write it down. And there's no like real rules for this, but maybe there's some guidelines. I looked this up. I did it myself. The first thing is to write it in present tense. So write it, even though you're thinking about the future, whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. Use the present tense, because you're having a vision. You're envisioning this, and you want to kind of pretend like you're watching a movie. And so if you were writing down what was happening in a movie, you would say, oh, the woman walked through the door, or the woman says this, because it's happening right in front of you and you're just writing it down. It's the same thing. If you are using language that is either future tense, or that notion of like I hope or I wish, then it is just hoping and wishing. You're not truly visualizing it. If you can really put it in present tense, like I am living in this type of environment, I do have this thing, I'm doing this thing, and however, but whatever it is that you're envisioning. So it's like, oh, I'm in my studio every day making art, or I find 15 minutes here and there to practice the piano, or whatever it is that you are envisioning for yourself. So write it in present tense. And I sort of hinted, like, you can do really any kind of time frame. When I first heard about this, it was through Debbie Millman, who was talking about it on a podcast, and said that she was taking a class with, I think it was Milton Glaser, and he gave them assignment of like doing this and envisioning yourself 5 years from now, Like in 5 years, what do you envision that you're doing? So 5 years is common. Then I heard 3 years, and then when you start looking it up, sometimes you'll see 10 years. So you could do 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 3 years from now, even a year from now. I mean, if you're thinking about changes you want to happen this year, pick a year. For me, I did this for 5 years from now because I figured, okay, I've been doing my own thing for 5 years. I'm not where I had envisioned myself 5 years ago. I thought I'd be further along. And so I'm envisioning, where am I going to be in 5 years? And I was very specific about what that looked like. So that's the other thing, is you want to be very specific. Like, you can't just say, oh, like, oh, I hope to be rich. Get as specific as you can. So is there like a income amount that you are envisioning for yourself? Is there a very specific job that you're envisioning? It's like, where are you living? Who are you with? What kind of job, or, how are you making a living, kind of thing. So it really kind of depends on what you're envisioning. If you're just envisioning making more art, then, you really have to be specific about what you're doing. Maybe not about like what type of art you're making, because that can change. And so, yeah, so writing in present tense, being specific, and aligning it with who you are and what your goal is. I think too often it could be like, oh, well, I'm not, as a 48-year-old guy, I'm not going to write down that, oh, I'm going to be, a star quarterback for an NFL team. To me, that's not very practical. There's probably no way I would like get in the shape and, make a team like that. But if it was something, if I really love sports though, and I was like, oh, I want to be involved in the NFL or with professional sports in some way, then yeah, maybe I can envision doing that. If that was something that was really, that aligned with what I wanted, aligned with my true self, aligned with what I wanted for my goals. And then I would say, you want it to be kind of practical, but yet you want to dream big. I think the problem is that sometimes we shortchange ourselves, and we go, oh, well, I really, I really want this thing, $1 million income a year, but, I don't know if I deserve that, or maybe that's just too greedy. But I think if you're envisioning it, you really want to go big. But yet you also have to think like, envisioning like, oh, I'm going to hit the lottery. My wife and I always joke about like, one day when we hit the lottery, we're going to fix up the house and rescue all these animals. And, but it's just it's a whim, it's a wish, it's a hope. It's something that we're not really envisioning now. Maybe those jackpot winners really envision themselves winning those jackpots. But I think, in practical terms, what can I control? What can I control? That is kind of what I want to focus on. So yeah, and you still want to dream big, but like, oh, I'm envisioning aliens coming down and making me king of the world. I don't know if that's like extremely practical. I can't predict if aliens are going to come down on Earth and make me a king over the next 5 years or 10 years or 20 years. So, trying to like really, but again, I think it goes back to aligning with what you want. So anyway, so yeah, like visualization, write it down. The other thing that's I've heard a lot of folks do is like that like everyday visualization, like that athlete who visualizes going down the ski course. You can envision, what's your day going to look like. So every morning you might get up and do some kind of visualization, like, okay, this is what the day is going to be. Like you're setting your intention for that. And I think that's what this is all about, is that when we visualize, we are able to set our intentions. But then the other thing is that we can see ourselves in that situation. And if we can really see ourselves, then we believe that it can happen. And I always believed and still believe that the universe is always conspiring with us. And so if we can really be very intentional about setting up what we're envisioning, the universe has our back, as some people say, and we're going to be able to make those changes that will lead to this bigger thing. But we have to be very clear about what it is that we're visualizing. So anyway, so that's kind of like the first thing that I did. So I encourage you to grab some paper and a pencil or a pen and just write as much as you want. But again, write in present tense. Pick a year. Is it a year from now? Is it 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? I did 5 years and I did 1 year. So, 5 years from now, I'm envisioning a certain thing. And then for a year from now, oh, I'm on that path to getting that, those big changes 5 years from now. And, so that way it's kind of, all right, got the big plan. Now I got a smaller plan. Let me move ahead. And the thing is, I don't know exactly how I'm getting there. I really don't. And I think that's it. Visualizing isn't about like planning it out, because I think in the future there's so much that you can't plan for, so much stuff happens, things that you can't foresee, but you're making space for that, and you're allowing room for that unexpected. There's a great quote about like when you're thinking about your future, it's like you don't have a map, you have a compass. You can't figure it out step by step, but you have a compass to make sure that you're going in the right direction. So anyway, like I said, try it out for yourself. Let me know what you thought of it. Did you write something down? Maybe go ahead and do a vision board along with it, but go ahead and write it down and see if you can really visualize this change that you want to make in your life. So anyway, thank you for tuning in, and let me know what you think in the comments. And until the next video, thank you so much, and happy creating.